Make sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy.
The A-4 was a delight. It's the only word for it. And I have to say the A4M, because the Mike had the big engine. It had the P408 engine in it. We had a couple of TA4s on the squadron which had the P6, P8 engines in, and they were dogs.
Yeah.
The A4 Mike. Now bear in mind, I'm talking now 40 years ago. This was an obsolescent aeroplane. It was going out of service with the US Marines. We had the angle rate bombing system in the nose of it, which was the system that was going into the AV-8B and RGR5/7. It had internal active ECM, chaff and flares, radar warning. We flew it on a red flag, and the standard fit for it on red flag was with a Shrike anti-radiation missile on one outboard station, an AIM-9 Lima on the matching starboard outboard station, double bubble, 2 fuel tanks, which gave you an hour and a half at low level without any problem, and 6 Mark 82 500-pound bombs centerline.
That's a tiny little aircraft.
Small, smokeless engine, turns on a sixpence, or for our colonial cousins on a dime. We could ingress at 540 knots true and come out having dropped the bombs but retaining the MER, that was the rack that carried 6 bombs, at 570-ish. And that's a pretty draggy piece of kit, the MER.
Yeah.
But you were small, and that caused huge, and you had a 9 Lima on board, and you can be somebody with a 9 Lima on board. And so on red flag, the big boys, the F-15s, would, if they were doing a long distance air-to-air firing, then that was irrelevant.
Yeah.
Once you got into a close-in fight, and I'm not talking about the expression as a knife fight in a telephone box, not that close, but they would see you and they would assume that you were an F-14 a long way away. And by the time they realised that you weren't an F-14 a long way away, but you were an A-4 very close, it was too late.
Yeah.
The only negative to the A4 was it had full span leading edge slats, which were not hydraulic or electrical, they were aerodynamic.
Right.
So as you slowed down for a landing, the slats would progressively, and they were just basically on rails, would progressively extend until they reached the end of their travel, and they produced a huge amount of extra lift, which of course was good because it reduced your landing speed, which is important for landing on a boat. The trouble was that if you were doing air combat and you rapidly pulled a load of G, if you weren't absolutely symmetrical, you had a slight yaw. One slat would come out a nanosecond before the other slat, but that was long enough to generate a fairly intense roll rate, which would bang your head against the canopy. So I think most of the pilots had helmets with scratch marks on the sides because this had happened. But what a great, great aeroplane.
Absolutely. And you mentioned for the A4 there, you managed to drop some bombs, or what can you tell us about that, or what it could carry at the time?
Well, red flag, as I say, we had 6 Mark 82 500-pound bombs. Well, I say we dropped a lot of practice bombs, but we also dropped a huge number of high explosive and other bombs. It was a fairly regular event. One of the things we did, and I was in an A4 on this, was we went and sank a destroyer. It was the USS Cunningham, or as our colonial cousins would say, Cunningham.
Cunningham, yeah.
Very bad American accent, sorry about that. And it was a hulk that they had cleaned of all petrol oils and lubricants, etc. So it was a clean hulk that they towed out into the Pacific, and we went and sank it. And it was a mixed formation. The A-6 was doing the laser designating, and we had A-7s and A-4s, I was in A-4, dropping laser-guided bombs on it, which would hit the ship and go bang, and there'd be a sort of a flash and a sparkle, and then nothing would happen. So another bomb would be dropped, same event. And I guess what sinks ships is fire. So you need hydraulic fluid or fuel or something to burn, and that then presumably is what causes the chaos that perhaps weakens the hull, and down it goes. And it was getting a wee bit frustrating because by now we're sort of running out of bombs, and this wretched hulk was still sitting there afloat. And what actually sank it was a miss. It was a very near miss, but it was a Mark 84 bomb, which was a 2,000-pound bomb, that landed a beam amidships, very close in on the water, and it took the side of the ship out.
Right.
That let the seawater in, down it went. So that was fun. The other, and again I repeat, this is 40 years ago. One of the other weapons I enjoyed dropping was a walleye TV-guided bomb. Now this was an ERDL, E-R-D-L, walleye TV-guided bomb. And it was a glide bomb. It had big sort of delta fins on it. And if my memory is right, from 25,000 feet, you dropped it from about 25 miles. The first aeroplane to would lock onto the sort of approximate target area, and then he would turn around and run away bravely and go home for tea and medals. I was in the second aeroplane. I was about 40 miles in trail, and I was then data linked to his bomb. And as the bomb got closer, so the target definition became more specific, and you can then update what the bomb is locked onto, and it's contrast locked. So if you're going against a building, initially it'll probably lock onto the roof or the floor or something. But if you're told to go to the top left-hand window of the building, you can then update the lock. That bomb goes in, very difficult not to blink at the last minute when it hits. Then you drop your bomb, turn around and run away bravely for tea and medals, and you're data linked to your own bomb, and you do exactly the same for your own bomb. So if the designated point of impact was the top left-hand window, and you missed it with his bomb, then you had a second crack at it with yours. You know, that is the sort of technology that we were using in the late 70s, early 80s. And if we'd had that in 82 down south, life would have been so much different. The trouble is that it does require clear weather. And we were fixated, we were blinkered on European weather and low cloud, to the point that those were the only weapons we had. So we actually had no option but to go in at low level. It would have been nice to have a choice, because the other thing with VX5, we did a red flag, and red flag is a brilliant exercise, a high threat, really testing exercise, which as far as I was concerned was a low level exercise. Well, with VX5 they said, right, we're going in medium level, and I sulked for about half an hour and kicked the can down the road. I thought, here we are in red flag, opportunity to go and do some real proper stuff, and we're going in a bloody medium level. I don't believe it. Well, I was completely wrong. And this is where I say it's the blinkers, and you need to be aware that there are other ways to do things. And we flew in on this Alpha strike, mixed formation. We had F-14s as fighter escort, not way out in front of us, close into the formation. Every aeroplane was armed with at least one AIM-9 Lima. A-7s could carry two without losing a weapon station. And laser-guided bombs, A-6 with laser designator, and an electric A-6, an EA-6B. So we flew in at medium level. The F-14s simulated the launch of the Phoenix missile because they had two F-5s attached to them. And when they were theoretically launching a Phoenix, they'd fire one of these F5s out ahead to say, pretend you're a Phoenix.
Yeah.
The electric A6 would electronically sanitize. That's a word that's being used a lot at the moment. Sanitize the area. And we all had Shrike on. Now the Shrike, that was the available anti-radiation missile of the day. Limited frequency coverage, but if you mixed and matched the seeker heads of the Shrikes, you could cover the prospective threats. And the plan was that you preemptively fired these things, and as I understand it, a radar operator, if he sees a missile inbound, switches his radar off because he doesn't want to land on his head. And if they've done an emergency shutdown of the radar, I don't think you can simply time out the missile and then switch it back on again and carry on as if nothing's happened. So we could preemptively launch these strikes, which they gave us credit for. The electric A6 would do all the electronic order of battle stuff. The F-14s did the air-to-air stuff. And we went in and we plinked the target with laser-guided bombs. And it was, frankly, dead easy. During the sortie, one F-15 came to the formation, and it then became an argument of I got you before you got me type things. But frankly, if we'd had live AIM-9s on, he wouldn't have been there.
No, of course not.
He might have got one or two aeroplanes, but he'd have died in the process. So yeah, that was another good thing at VX5.